Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over the 2026 U.S. Senate race in the state of Michigan, where another Democrat, State Representative Joe Tate, has entered the race in what is now becoming a very crowded field on the Democratic side to replace retiring Senator Gary Peters. Looking at his campaign site, it shows him tossing a football up in the air. We can hit up here on the site, it says, "Why am I running?" Joe will show up and be a leader who'll get things done for Michiganders. Joe's grandparents came to Detroit from Alabama as part of the Great Migration, seeking the American dream. His grandfather worked as a bricklayer for 35 years, bought a home, provided for his family, and gave his kids a better life than he had. Michiganders have always fulfilled their end of the bargain to unlock the American dream by working hard, providing for their families, and looking out for their communities. But the deck has been stacked against them for far too long. Politics, as usual, isn't working. Some very key policies that he supports right now: too many Michigan families are struggling to put food on the table and keep their bills paid. Medicaid cuts are threatening local health clinics in small towns and services like OB/GYNs, forcing women to travel 60 miles to the closest doctor, and Social Security and Medicare cuts, which allow seniors to live their lives with dignity. Those are some obviously very passionate issues Tate is expressing here. So getting into the 2026 part of things, Michigan right now, it's an open Senate race. If this is the first time you're hearing about this, Michigan's incumbent Democratic Senator Gary Peters, he's been the senator now for 2 terms. He was eligible to run for a 3rd term if he wanted to run. There's no term limits for U.S. Senate races. Peters decided not to seek re-election and to try and seek a 3rd term, meaning the race is now open in November of 2026. And what has quickly become an open race has also just as quickly become a very contested race on the Democratic side to replace Peters. The first candidate to join the race, I believe, was State Senator Mallory McMorrow. Second was then Haley Stevens, a U.S. representative. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I think it might have been Abdul El-Sayed was the second candidate to enter the race to run as a Democrat. And then Haley Stevens, the U.S. representative, jumped in the race as well, making 3 Democrats. State Representative Joe Tate, who publicly expressed interest in the past to run for this race, has now entered, with 4 Democrats now in this race. And that may not even be it. 2 more Democrats, Sarah Anthony, another state senator, and Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of the state of Michigan, both have expressed interest in running. So this race is really wide open on the Democratic side. Right now, some endorsements have been made. Abdul El-Sayed has the endorsement of Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna. Haley Stevens has the endorsement of Michigan Representative Hillary Scholten, and then Elisa Slotkin, the Michigan senator, has declined to make an endorsement in this race. There's only been 2 polls done so far, but both of these polls included Pete Buttigieg and Gretchen Whitmer when they were both possible candidates at the time, both of which have said they will not be running in 2026. So as for the Democratic primary side of things, it's really anyone's guess. It's a completely wide open race at this time. We don't have any polling data. We don't even have any campaign affiliated polling data right now, which typically benefits the candidate that's promoting it, obviously. We don't even have any of that yet, so this is still a very early race on the Democratic side, and we're going to have to wait and see how that all develops. On the Republican side of things, right now the only Republican running is former U.S. Representative Mike Rogers. He was from Michigan's 8th Congressional District from 2001 to 2015. He was also most recently the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate in 2024, where he lost a very close Senate race to now Democratic incumbent Senator Elisa Slotkin. Show you the results of this race. It ended up being 0.34% for Slotkin over Rogers. The raw vote numbers ended up being approximately 20,000 votes, separating Slotkin and Rogers. So a very, very close race. As now looking back on the Republican side of things, there are some other potential Republicans that could run. Tudor Dixon, candidate for governor in 2022. Bill Huizenga, a U.S. representative from Michigan's 4th District. And Lorenzo Sewell, a pastor and activist. We're going to have to wait and see what happens here. Of these 3 candidates, Bill Huizenga is the one that would likely give the most challenging situation for Rogers in a primary. Tudor Dixon could decide to run for this race, but I feel like it'd be more likely she'd want to make another run for governor, but she could run for this race, and I could be wrong. Whereas Huizenga, trying to appeal himself maybe as more pro-Trump, could potentially get an endorsement from the president, which may end up giving Mike Rogers a much tougher time at winning the primary when Huizenga would have the endorsement of Trump. But that all is a conversation for a later day. Right now, Rogers already has the endorsement of Tim Scott and John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, and Tim Scott, who's in charge of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. This is the campaign arm of the Republican Senate, basically the part are the committee of Republicans who are trying to get more Republicans elected to the U.S. Senate. So they both clearly think Mike Rogers is their best chance in Michigan in 2026 and has given him their endorsements. The early hypothetical polling for this race showed Tudor Dixon leading over Mike Rogers, and the Mitchell Research poll under the margin of error 5.8%, and Fabrizio Lee and Associates right around the margin of error, probably under it, a 4-point lead over Rogers as well. So both of these polls show a under the margin of error race for Dixon versus Rogers, with about 25% saying undecided, 23% preferring another candidate. As for the predictions for this race right now, again, polling has been very early in this race. There hasn't been many substantive polls. Cook Politico, Inside Elections, and Saddler Crystal Ball all have the race listed as a toss-up. Race to the White House has it as tilt Democrat. The only poll of the candidates running so far is Haley Stevens versus Mike Rogers, which showed Rogers with a 6-point lead, though there's still 24% of the vote undecided, with only a 600 vote sample size and a plus 4% margin, so really not too much to go off of that. Most of the other hypothetical polls were candidates that either are not running or have yet to declare. Dana Nessel versus Mike Rogers, that matchup is still possible. Nessel has a 1-point lead over Rogers in that one. Nessel versus Dixon would be a tied race. Buttigieg won't be running, nor will Whitmer, and that's pretty much it for the only potential matchups. As for this race for 2026, it's really anyone's guess at this time, as the Senate race in 2024 was so close. Slotkin won by 0.34% against Rogers. It's also worth noting, however, this election will be up in 2026, which based on historical precedent suggests it should be a very good night for the Democrats. The last time there was a midterm that was very good for the Democrats, you have to go back to 2018. And in that midterm election, which was President Trump's midterm, Debbie Stabenow, the Democratic incumbent, defeated John James by 6.5%, which ended up being a lot closer than initially expected, actually. John James did better than many pundits at the time was predicting. So 2018 showed a likely Democratic environment for the elections. Will 2026 be as blue as 2018? That's really the question, because if it is as blue as 2018, the Democrats could be in for not even a great night, but an amazing night. But in this era where Trump just won in 2024, will it be as Democratic big for the Democrats? That's really going to be what we're waiting to find out. Right now, President Trump's approval rating, as of the last time I'm checking this page, President Trump's approval rating is currently sitting at negative 5.4%. I would bet it would not be this come November of 2026. It's either going to be higher or it's going to be lower. Maybe it'll be around this, but historically over time, things have changed throughout the president's term. Just to give you an idea, I'm recording this around May 11th, and at this point in 2017, Trump's approval rating was at 41.8% favorable to unfavorable 54.2%. And then come election day, we can look for November 2018, Trump's approval rating actually went up a little bit to 44.2% approve, 52.6% disapprove. So Trump's approval went up from that point in time to the midterms. The question will be, does Trump's approval rating again go up or will it go down? That all remains to be seen. Right now, though, when you look at recent election results in 2018, the Senate race would suggest Michigan should be a likely Democratic win. However, the presidential race, Michigan has moved a lot to the Republican direction. Trump won by 1.4% in 2024, where Biden won it by 2.8% in 2020. 2016, Trump won by 0.22%. The governor's side of things, Michigan has been a likely Democratic state now in 2 elections in a row. Whitmer won by 10.5% in 2022, and then 2018, she won by 9.6%. Is that a Democratic thing, or is that a Gretchen Whitmer thing? That remains to be seen, but Michigan at the governor level has been likely Democratic. The Senate level, it was under 1% in 2024 in a very close race. 2020, it was under 2% by Peters winning by 1.7%. And then you have to go back to 2018, the last time it was over 5%, 6.5%. Michigan's really all over the map here. It's going to be very, very close. At the Senate side of things, if you want to look, we can look at 2024 and compare it to 2018. And you can see here that Michigan, with Rogers, has trended about 6.2% towards the Republicans' direction since 2018. If you want to look at the presidential race, we can compare 2020 to 2024, even 2016 to 2024. Michigan has shifted about 1.2% in the Republican direction. The question is going to be, for the Senate race in 2026, how blue of an election environment are we looking here? Because Michigan, I would say right now, is probably the Republicans' best pickup opportunity after Sununu turned down a bid in New Hampshire and Brian Kemp turned down a bid in Georgia. I would say Michigan is probably the Republicans' best chance at a Republican pickup at this time. But 2026 should be a very good night for the Democrats based on history and what midterms usually end up being. It's also worth noting President Trump will not be at the top of the ticket to help Republicans boost turnout in Michigan. And there has been some states where when Donald Trump is not at the top of the ticket, a lot of Republican voters who are very loyal to Trump stay home and don't turn out to vote for other Republicans down ballot. Maybe 2024 changed that, but so far with the Supreme Court election in Wisconsin, it seems like it has not. So with the historical environment plus a lot of really dedicated Trump voters not turning out to vote, I am narrowly starting Michigan out as a very close win for the Democrats. I think it'll be over 1 point right now, but I don't think it's going to be over by all that much. I think we're going to see the Democrats win over Mike Rogers by about 2% or so in what would end up being a very, very close race. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Make sure to leave a comment below telling me what you think is going to happen in the 2026 Senate race in Michigan. Do you think Joe Tate will win the Democratic primary, or who do you think will win as of now? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. Also, check out my video I've recommended for you at the end of my video as well. I hope you're going to enjoy that video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.